The Chosen Adventures is one of those moments. It begins where imagination meets faith, where laughter meets revelation, and where a simple childhood encounter changes everything. When we were children, we dreamed of heroes who could walk on water, who could calm storms, who could love without measure. But what if we told you that such a hero is Rayland, that now, for the first time, we'll see his story unfold through the innocent eyes of two children who meet him face to face. It all starts in a quiet corner of Capernaum, a town buzzing with stories of a mysterious teacher who heals the sick and speaks in riddles that stir the soul. Two 9-year-olds, Abby and Joshua, spend their days playing by the shoreline, chasing pigeons, and imagining worlds far beyond their village. But one afternoon, as the sunlight bends across the sea, something extraordinary happens. Their game is interrupted by a stranger, Gentle.com, and yet carrying a presence that silences the air itself. His eyes reflect something beyond time. His voice carries both strength and comfort, and when he smiles, the world seems to breathe again. His name is Jesus. From that single meeting, a new kind of adventure begins, not just for Abby and Joshua, but for every child and every heart that's ever wondered what it would be like to truly walk beside him. What makes The Chosen Adventures so powerful is not just the animation, not just the storytelling, but the emotion, the humanity, and the spiritual heartbeat behind it. This isn't just a show. It's a reminder that childlike faith is not weakness. It's the door through which truth enters. Behind this project is the same creative soul that gave life to The Chosen. But this time, the canvas is different. Colors dance, the wind carries whispers of faith, and ancient Capernaum comes alive like never before. The creators ask themselves one powerful question. What if the next generation could meet Jesus the same way we met him through story? The answer became a mission to create something that entertains, inspires, and transforms hearts at the same time. The world of The Chosen Adventures began not from a boardroom idea, but from a quiet desire to create something that could speak to the hearts of children, the way the original series spoke to adults. The creators of The Chosen always knew their story carried something timeless. But when they saw how children around the world connected to that one simple episode, the one where Jesus spent time with kids, they realized something profound. Faith, in its purest form, begins with curiosity. It begins with wonder. And so the idea was born. What if we could show the same Jesus, the same truth, but through the eyes of those who see the world with unbroken trust? From the very beginning, this project carried a sense of divine timing. It wasn't about expanding a brand, it was about planting seeds. The team gathered, prayed, and dreamed together. They imagined a world where ancient stories could breathe again through color and movement. And in those dreams, Abby and Joshua were born. Two children, ordinary in every way, yet destined to witness something extraordinary. They represent all of us, the believers who still wrestle with doubt, the dreamers who crave something real, and the children within us who once believed in miracles without needing proof. The art of the show reflects this heart. Every brushstroke, every frame, and every beam of light carries purpose. You can almost feel the warmth of the Galilean sun as it spills across Capernaum. The market hums with life. The laughter of children echoes down narrow streets. And somewhere in the middle of that vibrant world walks Jesus, humble, smiling, patient. He listens to the worries of two little ones who don't yet know who he truly is. He sits with them, not as a distant teacher, but as a friend. And in those simple conversations, the foundations of faith are built not through rules or fear, but through love. The first season slowly unfolds this encounter. Each episode reveals new lessons not just for the children, but for us, the viewers. We see Abby struggle to understand why her family works so hard, but still feels unseen. We see Joshua wonder why good people sometimes suffer. Through their innocent eyes, we are reminded of our own questions, the ones we stopped asking long ago. And every time Jesus answers, he doesn't lecture, he tells stories, stories that move like waves, soft yet powerful, sinking deep into the heart. That's the beauty of The Chosen Adventures. It doesn't preach, it simply invites you to listen. Behind the scenes, the creators knew this wasn't just about animation. It was about truth. Every word spoken by Jesus in this series echoes scripture. Every parable draws from the same well of wisdom that has guided generations. Yet the tone remains light, hopeful, and filled with joy. The humor between Abby and Joshua keeps it real. Their small arguments and laughter reminding us that faith doesn't erase humanity, it perfects it. That's what makes The Chosen Adventures so unique. It balances spiritual depth with emotional simplicity. You can feel the care in every detail, the way the sky shifts during a moment of revelation, the way silence fills a scene just before something divine happens. It's storytelling crafted with devotion. Asterisk, asterisk, and still, there's more to it. Beneath the charm, there's a thread of mystery. As the episodes progress, Abby begins to sense that her new friend isn't just any man. His words seem to carry eternity within them. Joshua feels it too, that quiet stirring in his heart that whispers, this is someone different. Yet, Jesus never announces himself. He lets them discover who he is through love, through compassion, through the way he sees them. And when they finally understand, it's not a moment of spectacle, it's a moment of stillness. A sacred realization that forever changes the way they see the world. That moment becomes the beating heart of the season. Because when a child realizes who Jesus truly is, it's not just their story that changes, it's ours. Through Abby and Joshua's eyes, we rediscover what it means to trust, to believe, to hope again. The animation might be for children, but the message runs deeper than age. It reaches into the quiet places of our hearts where faith once lived freely. It reminds us that the greatest miracles aren't always found in thunder and lightning, they're found in the whisper of understanding. In the moment, a child smiles and says, I believe. The team behind The Chosen Adventures wanted more than entertainment. They wanted an encounter. They wanted families to sit together, watch together, and feel something awaken again. That's why each frame carries purpose, each story carries heart, and each character carries light. Because when a child learns about Jesus through joy, imagination, and truth, it doesn't end with the episode. It begins there. The lesson continues long after the screen fades. Living in conversations, in prayer, in faith, rekindled at the dinner table. And maybe that's the greatest gift of all. That through this animated journey, a new generation will not just hear about Jesus, they'll feel him in color, in sound, in story, and in spirit. Because sometimes it takes the imagination of a child to remind the world who he truly is, as The Chosen Adventures unfolds. Something remarkable happens. It stops feeling like a story you're simply watching and starts feeling like one you're living. The world of ancient Capernaum isn't distant anymore. It feels near, familiar, almost within reach. You begin to see the market streets not as history, but as home. You feel the waves of Galilee moving gently beneath the same sun that shines today. The lines between past and present blur, and suddenly, you're not just an observer, you're a participant in a sacred adventure that has no age limit. Because faith, at its core, is not about time. It's about encounter. For Abby and Joshua, that encounter becomes the center of everything. Each moment with Jesus leaves an invisible mark on their young hearts. In one episode, they wrestle with the idea of forgiveness, Joshua angry over a friend's betrayal, Abby unsure whether kindness is still worth it, and Jesus, with the patience of a teacher who knows every human heart, tells them a story. It isn't a sermonette, a parable wrapped in laughter and tenderness. He takes them to the edge of the sea, draws in the sand, and speaks of two builders, one who built his house on rock and one on sand. The children don't just listen, they see it, they feel it. And as the waves roll in, they understand. That's the quiet power of The Chosen Adventures. It doesn't demand faith, it awakens it. What makes this series so captivating isn't only its animation or dialogue, it's the soul behind it. Every episode feels alive, beating with the rhythm of scripture and the pulse of childlike wonder. The creative team knew that if children could feel the truth of these lessons, they would carry them forever. And they were right. The way the stories are told allows the message to slip gently into the heart, almost unnoticed, until one day it blooms into understanding. That's how faith often works, not as a thunderclap, but as a whisper that changes everything. Yet there's also an unspoken tension that runs through the season, a question Abby and Joshua cannot shake. Who is this man who knows the secrets of their hearts? Why does his presence bring peace, even in silence? They begin to notice how others react to him. Some are drawn near, curious, changed. Others turn away, confused or afraid. And through it all, Jesus never forces belief. He invites it. He allows every soul to find its own way to truth. For Abby and Joshua, this becomes their greatest test, not a test of knowledge, but of trust. Because sometimes faith doesn't come with answers. Sometimes it begins with simply saying, yes, even when you don't yet understand. That in between those sacred lessons, the show never loses its warmth. The humor sparkles in small moments, the playful teasing between friends, the funny misunderstandings, the joy of discovery. There's laughter alongside the lessons, because The Chosen Adventures understands what childhood really is. a blend of questions and giggles, mistakes and wonder. That's what makes it feel real. It's not a sermon disguised as a cartoon, a reflection of how children actually think, feel, and grow. And through that authenticity, it touches not only children but adults, who may have forgotten what it was like to believe with such innocence. The visual design of the show enhances this emotional truth. Each scene feels hand-painted with intention. The colors shift with the mood, the bright golds and blues of joy, the muted tones of reflection, the warm glow that always seems to follow Jesus wherever he goes. Even in animation, his presence feels tangible. You can sense his compassion in the way he bends to listen, the way his smile seems to heal before words are spoken. This is more than Artist's worship through creativity. Every frame feels like a prayer of gratitude, every moment a reflection of divine beauty. But the deeper the story goes, the more Abby and Joshua begin to understand something profound, that following Jesus is not always easy. They face moments of doubt, fear, and even danger. There are people in Capernaum who don't believe, who mock, who question. The children learn that faith is not about avoiding hardship, it's about trusting through it. And even when they falter, Jesus never turns away. He reminds them, and us, that his love is constant, patient, and pure. The suspense builds quietly as they begin to realize that the man they've been walking with isn't just a teacher. He's the Messiah, the one their families have whispered about, the one the prophets foretold. That realization doesn't come with music or miracles. It comes in stillness. In one of the season's most moving moments, Abby looks up at Jesus after hearing him pray. There's no grand speech, no special effects, her voice trembling as she whispers, "You're the one, aren't you?" And he smiles, not with pride, but with love. That seems to fill the world. That moment captures everything. The Chosen Adventure stands for the meeting of innocence and divinity, of childlike trust and eternal truth. It's the kind of storytelling that doesn't just entertain, it transforms. And as that truth begins to unfold, the tone of the show subtly shifts. The playfulness remains, but the stakes grow higher. Abby and Joshua now carry something sacred inside them, a secret that will change the way they see the world. The viewers feel it too. The suspense doesn't come from danger or conflict, but from revelation. Because once you know who Jesus really is, you can never see life the same way again. The world becomes a little brighter, the heart a little braver, and the soul a little freer. That's the beauty of the Chosen Adventures. It's not about escaping reality, it's about seeing it differently. Through animation, through storytelling, through the laughter of two children and the compassion of one man who changed everything. It reminds us that faith was never meant to be complicated. It was always meant to be childlike, honest, simple, and pure. Faith always grows where it is tested. And for Abby and Joshua, that moment comes sooner than they expect. Their days with Jesus had been filled with laughter, lessons, and wonder. They watched him heal with a word, comfort with a glance, and teach with stories that seemed to unlock the world. But as the season reaches its heart, the tone begins to shift. Whispers ripple through Capernaum, rumors about this teacher from Nazareth. Questions about his power, doubt about his purpose. Some call him a prophet. Others call him a troublemaker. And for the first time, Abby and Joshua find themselves standing between two worlds, the simple innocence of childhood and the complex reality of faith. It begins with a moment of fear. The town is restless, merchants are arguing, and Roman soldiers walk the streets with sharp eyes. Abby's father warns her to stay away from the man called Jesus. Joshua's mother whispers that not everyone believes he's good. The children are confused. How could anyone fear the kindest person they've ever met? But as they sneak away to the shoreline to find him, they realize something: they haven't seen him in days. His absence feels heavy, almost unbearable. The world suddenly feels darker without his light. That's when the first spark of doubt enters their hearts. For Joshua, it's anger. For Abby, it's sadness. And for both, it's a question that every believer asks at least once in their life: what if he doesn't come back? The silence feels like a storm, echoing their confusion. They remember his stories about trust, about building on the rock, about faith that moves mountains. But those lessons are hard to hold on to when your heart feels empty. The camera might show an empty shoreline, waves crashing softly against the stones, their small footprints fading in the sand. But in that silence, something begins to grow. Because faith, they're learning, is not believing when you sit, believing when you don't. Then, as the tension builds, the moment arrives. Abby hears a voice, soft, familiar, filled with peace. "Why are you afraid?" She turns, and there he is. No grand entrance, No miracle of light, just Jesus, standing by the water, the sun setting behind him. The relief on her face says everything. She runs to him, words spilling out like tears. Where were you? Everyone says things about you. They don't understand. Jesus kneels, meeting her eyes. They don't need to understand, he says gently. You do. That single sentence stills her heart. Joshua, still angry, steps forward. Why don't you tell them who you are? If they saw, they'd believe. Jesus smiles, that patient, knowing smile. But then, Joshua, they wouldn't choose to believe. That line changes everything. Because in that moment, they understand what faith truly is. It's not about proof, it's about trust. It's not about seeing, it's about believing even when the world doubts. This becomes the turning point of the entire season. The children realize that Jesus doesn't just want followers, he wants friends who trust him enough to walk even when the path isn't clear. That realization matures them, not in age, but in spirit. The childlike wonder remains, but now it's joined by wisdom born of experience. They are no longer just curious kids, they are witnesses. The following scenes carry both AEW and gravity. Jesus continues to teach them quietly, in moments of stillness rather than spectacle. He tells them about the kingdom of heaven not as a faraway place, but as something already growing inside them. The kingdom, he says, belongs to those who see with faith. Abby listens, eyes wide, whispering, like children. And he nods. Exactly like children. That moment captures the heart of the chosen adventures. It's not just a story about two kids meeting Jesus, it's a story about what happens when the world starts seeing through their eyes. But even as peace returns, there's a lingering sense of mystery. The children begin to notice that Jesus often looks toward the horizon, as if he's preparing for something greater, something they can't yet understand. The tone shifts again, softly, like the calm before a storm. The viewers feel it too. This isn't the end of the story, only the beginning of something much larger. The suspense comes not from fear, but from anticipation, because every word, every miracle, every lesson feels like it's leading somewhere divine. Throughout these moments, the animation continues to breathe emotion into every scene. Light shimmers differently when Jesus speaks, as if creation itself is listening. The sound design mirrors the heart-gentle waves when peace is near, hushed winds when faith is tested. You can almost feel the sacred energy of these encounters. And through it all, Abby and Joshua begin to understand their purpose. They may be children, but they've been chosen to see what few others can: the love of God in human form. Their transformation becomes the emotional heartbeat of the season's final stretch. Where they once played, they now pray. Where they once imagined stories, they now live them. They return home carrying something invisible, yet undeniable, a hope that begins to change everyone around them. Their families, once skeptical, notice the difference. Their friends see the light in their eyes. And though many still doubt, something unexplainable begins to spread. Because faith, once planted, has a way of growing far beyond where it was sown. And as the sun sets over Capernaum, Jesus walks away, promising they'll see him again. Abby and Joshua stand silently, watching, their hearts torn between joy and longing. They don't know what the future holds, but they know this: they've met the Messiah. And that truth, that single encounter, will echo in their souls forever. This is the power of the chosen adventures. It's not just about miracles or animation, it's about awakening something eternal in its viewers. It reminds us that faith doesn't live in grand cathedrals or distant stories, it lives in moments of wonder, in the laughter of children, and in the quiet assurance that even when we don't see him, he is near, always near,